This is the Andor 18 megapixel digital camera, which is the cheapest camera you can buy on Amazon at the moment for £22.99. That is a bit of a lie. It's not the cheapest one. The cheapest one looked like it probably wouldn't even work. It's the cheapest one that I thought maybe had half the chance of working, which is why I bought it. And the reason I bought it is to try and see if you can take a decent image on a really cheap camera, and therefore have a look at how much gear actually matters, which I think we know the answer to anyway. Standout features of this camera are, as I say, it's 18 megapixels, it's got an anti-shake feature, it's got video capability at 1080p, it's got a fixed f3 lens, which I think is the equivalent of about 35-40mm, and we shall explore these features as I take pictures with this over the next few days on the Isle of Harris. That's right, this unfortunately isn't my home. I'm currently sat inside actually because as you might be able to hear, the weather is absolutely atrocious today. It's blowing a gale and there is sideways wind. Oh! Just trying to test out the anti-shake. Oh, it's horrible. It's so windy, it's impossible to hold the camera steady. Oh. So I'm getting to grips with this, which shouldn't take too long. Well, early indications are that this camera is rather unsurprisingly, seemingly a complete piece of shit. I've just taken a picture of this scene behind. Obviously, I've only seen it on the screen on the back of the camera, but I thought this is kind of very evenly lit and it's not going to tax the sensor of this too much, if it even has a sensor. I don't know what kind of technology they pack into a £25 camera, but immediately what I can see from the image is that it is extremely blue. You can see how blue that image is. Now if I try and change the white balance, it seems to be just different variations of blue. So given that this camera doesn't shoot RAW, unsurprisingly, it's going to be interesting to see how these images turn out when I load them into Lightroom later on. I want to see if it's going to be less blue when the sun comes out. Unfortunately, we have a big bank of blue coming in, so hopefully we're going to get some light soon. And I am determined to find a situation where this works. Maybe this has worked. We'll see. Not only does it make everything very blue, but it also seems to want to underexpose quite a lot. I've just taken a picture of this scene behind me, and I've shot it with my A7R5 and with the Andor, I can't remember what it's called. This, I mean, you would expect there to be a considerable difference between a £25 camera and a £4,000 camera or thereabouts. So I think I'm going to make some fine-tune adjustments to the exposure as well. Again, like, I don't know if the screen is an accurate representation yet of what the camera is doing. That's something I'm going to find out later on. So I'm just going to bring up the exposure level. I'll try a stop. But then that now looks very overexposed in the sky. It's these mountains over here that it seems to have the issue with. What I think I'm trying to say is that the dynamic range on this doesn't seem up to much. Yeah, it's a combination of the dynamic range and the screen. If you change the exposure value at all, it just makes the problem worse. I've still not had a chance to look at the images from this, but I am still shooting with it, and I guess it'll be a nice surprise when I do finally get to look at it. So conditions are just beautiful now with this light coming in from this side and the obviously amazing scene we've got ahead of us. I'm trying to make the foreground as uniform as possible in these tunes. It's hard with this. It's hard because the screen is so bad, and yeah, I don't know if it, like I said before, I don't know if it is the screen that's bad or the images are bad or just both. So it's really hard to even tell how you compose it. It probably doesn't help that I'm wearing sunglasses, but I wasn't wearing them earlier and it was just as difficult then. Just while I was waiting for the images to load into Lightroom from this, I thought I'd check out the Amazon reviews, and one of the first ones says very poor quality photos, so that fills me with optimism. Despite it not being too bad on the megapixels, the pictures are more like a 5 megapixel camera, very plasticky and poor build quality. And I kind of tested that. I reckon this thing weighs about 100 grams. Okay, so the first thing I can say is the color, as anticipated, is very weird. Those pictures I was taking yesterday morning, it was basically gray, and these have come out so purple. As expected as well, the shadows are very dark, and this is the image that I think I even overexposed. And I mean, you can see how purple that looks as well, and the highlights are just completely destroyed. If I then go to when the conditions brightened a bit, that, considering the sun's out, is also very blue. I think I can't remember what white balance I left it on actually. I think I left it on cloudy to add a bit of warmth because it just looked so blue on the back of the camera. And yeah, that's clearly still very blue, so I'm gonna have to do a bit of work. Let's have a punch in on the detail, and you can see that is zoomed into 100%, and I can see why the lady on Amazon said it looks like a 5 megapixel camera, because that completely falls apart when you zoom into 100%. That is probably what you expect. I think this shot is maybe the most promising that I got yesterday morning. This huge highlight area up here is gonna be problematic though. So yeah, when you look at it like that, not necessarily a bad photo. Want to do some work on it. So I'm gonna carry on playing with it over the next few days, try and work out how to edit these images, and then do a bit more of a review of the images at the end. Right, the problem with trying to make videos in the Outer Hebrides is that it's very windy, so I've got no idea whether or not you can hear me. But now that we know that this camera does take photos, and as long as you pay attention to the photos you're taking, it can take okay photos. We also know that the colour on it is very weird. Now, there are a number of different modes in the camera. You have to lose a glove for this. There is auto, night portrait, which we probably won't test, night scenery, which we probably also won't test, portrait, scenery, sport, party, beach, and high sensitivity, which has got a picture of a sun on it. So what I thought I'd do is I'd take this lovely beach scene here, perfect for the beach mode, and take a few photos here in all the different modes and see if there's any difference between them, and see if there's actually a colour mode in this that gives us realistic looking colours. I highly doubt it. So, given we're at the beach, we'll start with beach. Let's go party for the next one. I have got the anti-shake mode on, which we also know works, because this image I took outside the cottage the other day came out okay, as far as this camera's concerned. I need the anti-shake today because I might have mentioned, it's very windy. Sport, I assume, is a faster shutter speed, so let's see if it makes a difference with the waves. The next mode is scenery, which should be pretty good for this, I'd have thought. Then we've got portrait. Do you know what? I will do a portrait at some point, but I'm just going to take it now anyway, just to see what the colours are. Night scenery, I'm not going to bother with. Night portrait's just going to turn the flash on, and auto. So that's all of them done. Do you know what? Before I go, I am actually going to test out the video capabilities of this as well. Let's see how this goes. I don't think the anti-shake will be quite as good for this, but we'll see. Hasn't got a tripod mount, so I am limited to hand holding. I may as well also see what it looks like pointed at my face, which I imagine has got quite a harsh highlight on it right now. Who knows what the focus is like or anything. Can't anticipate anyone is going to use this for vlogging. Now, I really am going to stop here in a minute because I can't feel my hand anymore. But one more thing I did want to test out, and I said I wasn't going to test this out because I don't think there was any point. But given we've got the camera and it does have a digital zoom, let's see how that operates. Okay, it zooms into 8 times. So let's go for what on earth? Allegedly, it's focused for. There's a switch. It's focused for mountains and not plants. Okay, that's the 8 times. Let's zoom out a bit. Let's try 5 times, 3 times or thereabouts, 2 times. And then I'm not going to do 1 times because I think we've seen enough. We are set for a pretty good sunset here, I think. It's beautiful, but it's so windy and the sand is blowing into my eyes, my mouth, my ears. It's pretty brutal. And I'm just shooting the last few frames with this in this direction, and I noticed how scratched the screen was, and I thought that's not quite right. But then I also noticed it's got a little peely cover on it that I forgot to take off. So I'm going to take it off now and see if it makes any difference to the quality of the screen. The main issue I've got with it, if you put it higher or lower, if you're not looking at the screen straight on, you basically can't see what's going on at all, and it is hard to see what's going on when you look straight on. So I'm going to take that off and see if that makes any kind of difference, and make sure it doesn't blow away. No, it makes no difference whatsoever. It's still a terrible screen. So the overall point of this video was supposed to be that if you can take a good picture on a decent camera, then you can probably also take a good picture on a £23 camera. And I feel like I've kind of proved that, because some of these images are okay when you view them small enough. It was hard to compose an image, and that is such a fundamental part of taking a good photo, and that wasn't helped by the screen. We now know that the plastic cover I left on didn't actually make the blindest bit of difference, and one of the things that lets this camera down is the quality of the screen. There are obviously other things that let it down as well. But I think when you kind of take everything into consideration, the composition of some of these images and the moments I captured do make good photos. I like this one of the rainbow in particular, and I think if you were to put this on Instagram, then you probably wouldn't know that this was taken on this camera. It took a bit of messing around to get the colors right, and even so, they're not right in a lot of images. If you look at this one, for example, with the houses, the way it kind of blows out the sky is really distracting, and there's not an awful lot you can do about that. So, I mean, it was a fun thing to do this week. Thankfully, I didn't pay too much attention to shooting on this because we've had some incredible conditions on Harris and Lewis this week. But I mean, I got some okay pictures with it, and I probably will put some on Instagram just to see what the reaction is to them. So I guess ultimately all of that leads to the question of, would I recommend this camera? And honestly, you might be surprised to hear that no, I wouldn't recommend this camera. I'm pretty sure everyone who is watching this video has a smartphone that is more capable than this camera. So yeah, I don't know why you would. I did think I'd probably give it to one of my sons after this video for them to kind of practice, but I feel like, given that the user experience of it is so bad with the screen, it's just going to put him off photography, and I don't want that. I'd rather spend more money and get him an older used camera that he can actually enjoy using and can actually see on the back that maybe he's taking a decent photo, because I didn't have a clue until I got these in Lightroom that some of these were okay. And I think that would just be frustrating for him. I don't want to get him a phone because I don't want to get my kid a phone. And that's a whole other conversation. So I would much rather give him a used, much cheaper camera than one of these. And I think Martin's review on Amazon probably sums it up best. And Martin says, did not like the pictures it takes. My phone takes better photos. I'd agree with that. I did like some of the pictures it took, but Martin's right. His phone probably does take better photos. So use your phone, or better yet, just use any other camera. It's in my eyes, my mouth, my ears, my hair. I'm even getting grass blown into my mouth. I just can't tell what's going on.